Really what I want to take you through today is a number of things, really. So some of the work we've been doing in RAP's Product Sustainability Forum, and this has initially been about trying to create the evidence to understand what sustainable food choices might look like and what sustainable foods might look like if you take a whole chain, whole life cycle approach to that problem. So I'll take you through some of that, just give you a glimpse of some of the evidence we've been putting together and how we're visualizing that evidence. And then I want to talk a bit about how we at RAP work to convene whole chain projects and voluntary agreements, things like the Quarto commitment, which has a 10-year track record of working with the food industry and the grocery industry to tackle waste and resource efficiency issues. I'm going to finish that section with a little bit of a description around Quarto 2025, which is the latest voluntary agreement we're talking to the food and drink industry about. You will soon see it is pretty all-embracing, all-encompassing. And then I'm going to finish off just by giving two one-slide examples of what two major food retailers in the UK are doing. One is Tesco, one is Sainsbury's, on the whole thing around healthy and sustainable food and healthy and sustainable diets. I'm going to try and do that in 10 minutes. This is going to be really interesting. So to start with then, the Product Sustainability Forum, we're about a number of things. So the research and evidence, we take this life cycle-based approach to environmental impact, what we call hotspots. We look at where existing initiatives are in the industry because we hate to duplicate. We like to find good partners to collaborate with. We're trying to understand who the key actors are in the food chain as well when we look across the different product categories in the food chain. And by that, I largely mean two audiences, the people that are driving and influencing change in a sustainable way in the food industry, and the poor buggers who actually have to deliver the implementation of those changes in the value chain. Very, very interesting audiences when you bring those together in the room. The other thing around the Product Sustainability Forum is it was set up to drive collaborative change. So it involves something like 100 organisations from all the major food retailers and food and drink manufacturers through to NGOs like WWF, Friends of the Earth, Forum for the Future, central government departments, the Environment Agency. It is truly multi-stakeholder. And that creates some very interesting and very rich discussions as well when you're talking about food sustainability. We have used this hotspots analysis approach to understand what the priority products are in the food system. And what I mean by that is what are the ones with the highest environmental intensity? What are the products which have the greatest material flows, the greatest ingredients flows, if you like, in the food industry? And where is the value? Where is the economic value across these? So those three markers for us make up what a priority product is. So we've got that. We've done a lot of work over 2.5 years to understand that. We also then need to understand what the solutions are. So you've identified a hotspot. It's on a farm. What's the characteristic of that hotspot? Who do you need to work with to affect that hotspot? And we have these Pathfinder activities you'll see here. And these are truly whole chain. So we'll work with the farmer, the pack house, the distribution company, the retailer, right the way through to the consumer. So they are all embracing, and they take a long time to set up as well, but all embracing projects where we try to really understand what the sustainability issues are in a particular product category, and we look at offering and testing a range of solutions within that product category. And I'll give you some examples in a second. And all of that is captured on a knowledge base, which is freely available, and I'll share that link with you in a second. So that's the driving collaborative change bit. Now, about 1.5 years ago, we had a series of workshops with industry, and the clear message we got back is this is great evidence. We can really do something with this, but you need to give us something that creates traction. How can we produce a framework that allows us all to collaborate in the pre-competitive space and do something meaningful? And this is where we've been working on Quarto 2025, trying to understand what we can do with the food industry. We're also trying to build skills. So I'll give you one example of that. We've just run a pretty significant sustainable product design project as a Pathfinder with Sainsbury's. They are now embedding not just health, but sustainability into their product development processes. Now that for me is great because 12,500 products go through that process in the next 2 years. Inherently, they will improve, they will be benchmarked against the previous product and against the market over time. But that's not enough, because we need their suppliers to understand how to go through that process. So we need to train them. And that takes 2 years. 50 suppliers is pretty much 80% of their volume. So we need to do that training too. So it's about capacity building too. And then finally, and that's quite a lot of work, believe you me, to get all that together, We set up about 2 years ago an international network of product sustainability initiatives. So all of the different organisations around the world doing work on product sustainability, doing work on sustainable lifestyles, bringing them together to collaborate. So we now have 52 organisations in 34 countries doing that with us. So we get a really rich picture of where these hotspots sit and how we can interact with them. So what's this look like? Well, this is what we call our heat map for the grocery industry. So this is our top 50 priority products. We've got a pointer on this. So down this column here, you'll see all the food groups, the product groups. Next to that, you'll see the product mass, so all the physical flows of ingredients in the UK economy, measured in thousands of tonnes. Then you'll see the greenhouse gas emissions associated with those. Then you'll see the embodied energy. Then you'll see the water footprint. And we also have waste information. In the middle, you'll see the grid here. So these darker squares are where the primary hotspots are. The lighter squares here are where the secondary hotspots are. So we try to prioritise this as much as possible. And then, as someone said this earlier, sometimes where you've got this grey square here, you don't quite feel like you've got the evidence, but you feel like it's a hotspot and you want to take action on it. So this is what this basically does. So to give you an idea of what that looks like as an at-a-glance heat map, so for potatoes, the humble spud, it's the 5th largest sales volume by product mass, so about 1.6 billion tonnes of spuds are consumed in the UK every year. We like our carbohydrates. And associated with that is about 1.9 million tonnes of CO2 emissions, 16 gigajoules of embodied energy, and a whopping 121,000 million litre water footprint. There's a very good reason for that. About half the irrigation water in UK agriculture is used for potatoes. So if you want to tackle a hotspot on water, potatoes is a very good place to start because it uses so much water. So then we're able to identify these hotspots, and we also have these guidance materials, so reduction opportunities, action plans, topic guides, and so on. Basic, very practical materials to help industry tackle these issues. Pathfinder projects. I'll mention another one. So we've just done a piece of work with a major, you're going to hate this because it's a ready meal manufacturer, and we've been talking about processed food all day. But we've actually been working to reformulate the product, so it just takes a minute less to cook. This is an Italian ready meal manufacturer. They put out tens of millions of these ready meals a week. Taking that 1 minute off the cooking time in the home is equivalent to their whole use of energy across all their factory sites on a weekly basis. That's what I mean about the power of this life cycle approach. You can fundamentally change the characteristics of the product and the characteristics of how it's consumed. So that, for me, is one really strong thing that we're working very hard with our collaborative partners on this. This is the knowledge base I promised you. You'll get these slides. There's a really nifty 8-minute YouTube video which shows you how to use it. If you can't use it after watching that, then you're probably more of a techno idiot than I am, but it's a really very simple knowledge base to use. So Quarto 2025. This is what I mean by all embracing. So I've talked a little bit about product design and development and incorporating sustainability into that. Most of the major food manufacturers and retailers already have health into that. So their big challenge is understanding what is the interface between health and sustainability. So they look at the Barthel Institute, they look at other forms of modelling around healthy and sustainable diet. And they, frankly, at the moment, struggle with it a bit. So this whole training we're approaching with the major suppliers now is helping them to get over that hump, helping them understand how you fit health and sustainability together in a very practical way in a new product development environment. We're also looking at buying and sourcing in the first theme here as well. So really trying to understand where the sourcing risk is for raw materials. And there's been some great work in the industry around this. So Sainsbury's, for example, have identified their top 35 critical raw materials. Without these materials, they don't have a business. They've been water footprinting the sources of those materials across the globe. They've been looking at greenhouse gas emissions. They've been looking at fundamental risk and how do they improve resilience in the value chain. Basically, what we see from this work that we're doing here is a fundamental shift in the power base between the farmer and the grower and the retailer and the manufacturer. Whereas just a few years ago, we would be in a situation, I think, where it's fair to say that everyone was striving to be a preferred supplier. Now, the more enlightened leading retailers and manufacturing companies are looking to be the preferred customer because there's not enough to go around. It's a genuine sourcing risk, and it will take place in the next decade. So that is a fundamental shift in the way, and it's a new business driver for these people to look at health and to look at sustainability. So that's about changing what we supply. The next theme under Quarto 2025 is about changing how we supply. So this is looking across the whole value chain. So I'll focus on the spuds thing, and give you a couple of examples. So the first thing we discovered when we walked in the room and we ran a workshop with the whole value chain is that no one actually understood where the perfect size of potato came from. And yet every single pack house in the UK and overseas is absolutely beholden to a 45mm circumference for a potato. No one knows where that guidance came from. No one knows what the hell it's all about. And the sad fact is that that sort of greyed out percentage means that a lot of the potatoes don't ever make it to a mouth and for human consumption. So we challenged this a bit, and we got some really good feedback. And just to give you an idea of just the tiny things you can do, moving from 45mm to 43mm in circumference increases productivity by £1,000 per hectare and increases crop utilisation by 5%. Is the consumer going to notice 2mm? Well, they haven't yet, and it's been running for a year. So I think the answer is no. So it's that sort of thing we need to do there. And then changing how we consume, well, I guess we've got a track record of over 10 years on working with consumers and working actually with broad partnerships on tackling food waste. And in the process of doing that and running things like Love Food, Hate Waste, I think we've kind of forgotten the fact actually that we just look at consumer behaviour and consumer knowledge and consumer attitudes through the lens of food waste. But actually we know far more about people's relationship with food than we ever thought we did. And I think in acknowledging that, that's given us the kind of the permission, the sense that we want to do something more. We want to take that body of knowledge and work with our partners to actually understand what is the transition here in consumption behaviour. So can we move? We've got a lot of work to do still on food waste, I'm not ignoring that. But can we then get them to think about health and healthy choices? And then ultimately, can we get them to think about not just food waste, so less wasteful behaviour, but healthier food choices and more sustainable food choices, and bring those together? We think we can, and you'll see from some of the corporate case study slides in a second why we think we can. And then finally, there's an inevitable amount of waste in the food system. So the fourth theme is all about trying to understand how we maximise the value. And I've put that citrus peel there just to give you another example. So the Institute for Food Research has been working with people like PepsiCo and Innocent Drinks to try and understand what to do with citrus waste. So peels, pith, things like that. It goes to landfill or it goes to anaerobic digestion. It's fine for that. But actually you can produce fragrances, natural oils, waxes, trace mineral supplements, vitamin supplements from it. Some of those byproducts are 20 times the value of the fruit juice or the smoothie. So it's a huge missed opportunity. So how do we integrate that kind of eco-innovation thinking into the food industry and generate some real value for it as well? And unsurprisingly, a lot of our corporate partners are very, very interested in that space and working with academic centres of excellence on it. So talk a bit about this notion of healthy, sustainable diets. So I think it's fair to say that in our corporate partnership base, we have a kind of polar situation when we talk about healthy, sustainable diets. Some of them really want to go for it. They really see it as adding value, as adding benefit to their customers. Others are very nervous and they feel like they don't want to get into this kind of nanny state. Oh my God, what do we do about health and how can we tell our customers about that without feeling that we're patronising them? But I think one of our colleagues, actually from Tesco, summed it up really nicely. And he said, how can we ask our customers to make choices about the sustainability of their food whilst fundamentally ignoring the primary purpose of food, health, nutrition, well-being? We have to have the two together. So we're going to be setting up in the next 3 months an advanced practitioner group from all the sectors, so not just the food industry, but centres of excellence, heads of nutrition, think tanks and so on, to just get a sense of what the art of the possible is here. We're going to be reviewing the effectiveness of existing interventions, so from Change for Life to corporate campaigns, and really getting a sense of what might work. And I think we're helped enormously by the recent McKinsey report. If any of you have seen the Overcoming Obesity report from McKinsey's, there is a great opportunity, we think, to link the behavioural change around food waste, so things like portion control, improving kitchen skills, and so on and so forth, to the health debate. Because if you get people to improve their kitchen skills, to understand portion control, you get a double win. They waste less food, they eat more healthily. And we think there's a lot of opportunities there. And then ultimately, we go through this transition process to 2017, where we do think about making recommendations for how to include this in Quarto 2025. So let's move on to Tesco. Pause for thought. Tesco, I have to admit, I'm on the advisory board for Tesco, so I am lucky in that I see what goes on in the boardroom. And I see how passionate they are. And I sometimes struggle with the negative view of these big food companies, because actually what they're about is a collection of really passionate people that want to make a difference. And that's what I see here. Now, Tesco is amazing, and it's very unique because it has the best data ever. It understands how we consume, what we consume, when we consume it. It also has got very, very good consumer insight. So you see here, in terms of health, what it's done is it's profiled the shopping baskets of all of its customers. Just think about that for a minute. That's tens of millions of households. That's a big modelling exercise, a big profiling exercise. And it's doing it for the right reasons. It wants to understand how it, as a business, can help its customers to lead more healthy lives. So it's got the segmentation there, and you can see roughly 40% unhealthy, unmotivated, and rather worryingly, actually, the segment there is mainly around young families. So for me, if I think about health, nutrition, and well-being, young families is definitely where I don't want to see unhealthy eating behaviour. Because then we lead to stunting, we see childhood obesity and all of those sort of things. So how can we work on that? But critically, they've tried to understand which of their products drive unhealthy consumption and which of these customer groups need the help the most. How does that differ by region, by format, by time of year, and so on? So that has been done now. That piece of analysis has been done. Next month, you'll see a pretty significant campaign coming out from Tesco on health. It is, I think, pretty groundbreaking. I'll see whether you agree with me at a later stage. It's the first time they've really gone public on something like this, but it's using all of that insight. It's incredibly powerful. So if I move on to Sainsbury's, Sainsbury's has you can see from some of these statistics, it takes food sustainability very seriously. The key thing, I think, to understand is, like Tesco, they are working very, very hard on understanding what it takes to make a healthier shopping basket. So they're doing all the reformulation. They're trying to provide better guidance to customers. They're trying to provide better nutritional information and guidance. You know, they're the largest retailer of MSC certified fish. They're the world's largest fair trade retailer, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think their sustainability credentials are pretty market leading. I think this sustainable design project with them as well is extraordinary in that we have got the whole development team and the board behind it. It will fundamentally change the way they deliver products to market and how they communicate that to consumers.